We have 36.2 trillion in debt today. Other nations are wanting to destroy our currency. Russia had assets in the United States and we froze them.
That's right. For example, if we use COVID, there's this surplus of money that's printed out of thin air, made up out of nowhere. And people say inflation's a tax on the poor, right?
It's exactly what it is. And
yeah.
It's an opportunity for the rich.
Right. Kevin Freeman joins us, Pirate Money Radio, here on the Watching the Watchers show. Kevin, nice to meet you. Welcome.
Nice to meet you. You're my booth neighbor.
We are booth neighbors,
yeah.
And your booth is much more decorative and pretty than ours, but I'm glad you made your way over here to talk to us. So we're talking about money today. What is your main message about money?
Well, I've got 5 main points.
Okay.
Number 1, our debt path that we have at the federal level is unsustainable. There's no way that we can continue to print money. When I wrote this book, it was June 2023. We had 32.1 trillion in debt. We have 36.2 trillion in debt today. It's increased $4.1 trillion in 18 months.
Well, and the numbers are like $1 trillion every 3 months now, right?
100 days.
100
$1 trillion every 90 to 120 days. So 3 to 4 months, we add $1 trillion in debt. That's unsustainable.
It's insane.
That's the first point.
Okay.
The second point is other nations are wanting to destroy our currency.
Okay.
You know, like the BRICS nations and all that. Elon Musk said if you weaponize your currency enough times, other countries will stop using it. Totally. That's our fault part.
Right.
And their fault part is Vladimir Putin hates the fact that the U.S. dollar is the world reserve currency, and he wants to end it. China wants to end it. So that's the second point.
And the reason that people might want to end the currency and the reason why they're upset with the United States is because we're inflating the currency, right? So they have money.
That's part of it.
Okay.
The other part of it is we've used it. So Russia had assets in the United States and we froze them.
That's right.
We took their stuff.
Right.
So they're mad about it.
Right.
A third reason is it gives us influence.
Yes.
And we have power and influence, and enemies of the United States don't want us to have that influence.
Right.
So that's the second main point is other nations hate what we're doing. The third point is inflation creates a wealth gap that hurts the poor and makes the rich richer.
Yes.
So if you inflate your currency like we've done, print so much money, you can look at the correlation. It's almost 1 for 1. The wealthiest 1/10 of 1% grow in wealth at the same pace as our dollars are printed. M2 money supply and increase in value of the top 1/10 of 1%. Why we have a wealth gap is not because capitalism is evil. We have a wealth gap because we don't have a free market. We have funny money at the top being printed like crazy.
Are you saying that all that money like bubbles back up to the top? So like, for example, if we use COVID, there's this surplus of money that's printed out of thin air, made up out of nowhere. It then is supposed to help, the little people, right? Everybody gets their checks and stuff. Then they get their $1,200. They think that they got something from their government. Turns out inflation has made them in the red,
right?
Because everything else is way more than $1,200 a year expensive. And those dollars ultimately are spent back into the system that goes up to the top.
Right. Well, another way to look at it is if the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates to 0, if you're an average person, you're not so creditworthy as to get 0% interest rate. Mark Zuckerberg can have 0% interest rate. All that piles of money comes free at the expense of the American taxpayer who pays the interest rate in the form of inflation.
Right.
And so if you're very wealthy, you take advantage of inflation. I can show 1,000 ways a rich person can protect and hedge against inflation. The average person has 0 opportunity. You get an extra $1,000, you can't invest it because you might need it for a washing machine, the car breaks down, your kid needs shoes. So that's the third real problem.
Okay.
That inflation is causing.
And so people say inflation's a tax on the poor, right?
It's exactly what it is. And
yeah.
It's an opportunity for the rich.
Right.
Right. So the fourth main point about money is central bank digital currency is coming, where the governments are creating money that's digital electronic, but it's programmable. So when I spoke here yesterday, I played a clip from August Karsten for the Bank for International Settlements. I could have played a clip from World Economic Forum. I could have played a clip from International Monetary Fund. They all say the same thing. The government's going to create this digital currency and it will give us absolute control. They can determine who's allowed to use it. You get a term of use license to use it. They can say, your skin color is not the right skin color, so your money's only worth half as much. You're trying to buy gasoline, you should be electric, so it's going to cost you twice as much to buy gasoline. You can't buy a gas-powered stove, but you can buy an electric one. They want complete control through the money, and that's absolutely happening. It's happening in 170 countries around the world.
Yeah, that is a very scary thing, and it basically takes over the entire platform because they've tried to do that in many different ways, right? With the internet, they've tried to do that, I think, medical, with someone else about unions, right? if you want to get a job, you got to sign up to a union and then pay them a portion of your fees.
It's all about money.
It's all about the money. Yeah.
At the bottom, the most controlling thing they could ever do is have complete control of the money, to where you have a term of use license and they can tell you what you can buy or what you can give or how you spend it, how you get it. Once they get that, it's game over for the rest of us.
Yeah.
And so some states have said we ban central bank digital currency. And maybe Trump says, I will stop that. But here's the problem. It's in the Constitution that the Congress can make that money if they want. And we can't stop that. But there's something else in the Constitution, and that's the fifth point. Money's changing. 50 years ago, there was no Venmo, there was no PayPal, there was no debit cards, there were a few credit cards. There were really few ways to have money other than cash and a checking account. 50 years. It's changed a lot.
Right.
Well, Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution says a state can make gold and silver coin legal tender. It's the only thing a state can make. So what if we took gold and silver and modernized it with electronic transfer capability, where you could have a debit card and you could go into a restaurant and you could spend gold and silver. Your employer could pay you in gold and silver. You could pay your employees in gold and silver. You can make your car payment in gold and silver. And it's all optional, made legal tender at the state level. That's what pirate money is. That's what this book is about.
Awesome. That is an interesting concept, because I just moved to a place called Prescott, Arizona, which is just north of here. And I was reading some history about the town. And it turns out there were, in the town back in the early 1900s, there were like 3 banks in the whole town. And what ended up happening is that they created a separate monetary system almost, where people have these tokens. And they would then transfer tokens throughout the town, and like the businesses would almost create their own currencies in a way, right? And then people would use the tokens and they weren't using the dollars. And it was an interesting thought that I never had really contemplated, that you could just create your own little economic community. And back in the 1912 Prescott, that's kind of what they did.
Well, if you do it at the state level, the federal government cannot interfere with it, because it's literally enumerated in the Constitution. A state can make nothing other than gold and silver. Therefore, by definition, a state can make gold and silver. The federal government was designed originally by our founders to not emit bills of credit. So they prohibited states from doing that. A bill of credit is like a credit card. I owe you, I will pay you back one day. A bill of debit would be, I have on reserve a certain amount of gold. I've given you a bill of debit. You can go exchange it like a silver certificate, and you could get what you want. That was constitutionally allowed. Bills of credit were forbidden to the states. Why didn't they forbid them to the federal government? Because they didn't give the authority to the federal government. And under the Constitution, if they didn't give you the authority, the founders thought, well, they won't have it. They've taken it. What we need to do at the state level is take back the authority of money to go back to what the founders intended. I've got a Continental note here in my bag that was from the Continental Congress. It says, payable to the bearer on demand, 4 Spanish mill dollars or the equivalent in gold and silver. The problem was they didn't have anything to back it up. And so we almost failed as a nation.
Wasn't there another proposed alternative currency at one point? Or weren't people creating like greenbacks or something?
Okay, greenbacks were Civil War, where we backed our money from the Revolutionary War times all the way up to the Civil War, and it was backed by gold and silver. During the Civil War, they said, hey, look, we're spending too much money, so they had unbacked paper money called the greenbacks, which is fascinating because that was ruled in 1868. That was ruled in, I think that was Hepburn versus Griswold. It was ruled unconstitutional for the federal government to have unbacked paper money. And in 1870, they packed the court and issued Knox versus Lee. And Knox versus Lee overturned that with a packed court. That's how we got the modern court. And it was Ulysses S. Grant who packed the court, because he wanted unbacked paper money to pay off all the Civil War debts. But I want to tell you, that was so fascinating that a man, L. Frank Baum, in 1900 wrote an interesting book about gold and silver. It was a children's story. And it was about how this poor girl from Kansas was taken out of regular America and whisked off to this strange land where she wanted to get back to real America. And how she did it was she was told to follow the yellow brick road and wear silver slippers, a bimetal standard. And there was a wicked witch in the Northeast who tried to stop her. That was the bankers. And she hired a bunch of lawyers called Flying Monkeys that went out and attacked her. And she was traveling with her companions, the Scarecrow and the Tin Man, and the politicians were called Cowardly Lion. And she got to the great city of Oz, OZ, ounce, as we measure gold and silver, with her silver slippers and gold. Is the answer here. Well, there was a big curtain and it was green. Was there anything behind the curtain?
Yeah.
No real power.
Yeah.
That was a greenback. The whole story of the Wizard of Oz is a monetary allegory about greenbacks.
Wow, that is amazing. I had not
And that's
known
in the
that.
book.
That's amazing.
A whole chapter on that.
Yeah, so the solution you were talking about more is this custody of gold and silver and then transferring it.
You call it allocated gold and silver. Here's an example. In my wallet, I've got a $100 bill. People say, if I don't hold the gold in my hand, I don't really own it. Well, I have a lot of $100 bills I don't hold in my hand.
Yeah.
They're ones and zeros on a computer at the bank.
Yeah.
And I write checks on it. I use a debit card. I pay my bills with an online bill pay. What if we, instead of having paper sitting at the bank, we had actual gold and silver?
Right.
So Texas has a bullion depository. You can put real gold and silver there, but you can't do this. You can't take a debit card and go and spend it. But there is a company out of the United Kingdom that has a MasterCard. You can see the MasterCard symbol there. And I can go over there and I can buy dinner with gold and silver at a restaurant. I buy groceries with it. The problem with it is threefold. Number one, do I trust this company out of the United Kingdom with my gold in Switzerland? Not as much as I would if my gold were in Texas, where I live, or in Phoenix, where you live.
Right.
Number two, the federal government will tax. I bought gold at $2,000 an ounce on that app, and it's now $2,700. I go spend it. They say, hey, you got a capital gain. You got to pay capital gains tax. Well, that's true if it's gold. It's not true if it's money at the state level. And the third problem is in 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, anybody own any gold? You turn it in to the federal government. Taking. So trust, taxes, and taking are three reasons it needs to be done. Senator Jake Hoffman, Senator Frank Carroll, I think, here in Arizona, they want to do that. And we have 30 states who've read this book, state legislators, and said, I want to know more. They contact us. We have legislation that will be entered in this coming year in 24 states. Texas, I think it'll pass. Florida, I think the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer of Florida, has endorsed this. He's Trump's pick to be Matt Gaetz's replacement. His name Jimmy Patronis. He read this book. He was on Fox News a week ago, Saturday. So exactly a week ago, he's on Fox News, Fox and Friends, and saying, this is what I'm going to do for the citizens of Florida.
That's great. And so what is your driving purpose? Are you trying to get this legislation passed? You're trying to educate people about the problems with the system?
So my job is, I'm an investment manager by training, and I worked as a consultant to the Pentagon on economic warfare issues, and I knew money was coming under attack. And so I tried to find solutions.
Yeah.
I've been dreaming about a personal gold standard since 1971 when Nixon took us off the old silver standard. And so I pulled it all together. I've got a Blaze television show and Pirate Money Radio on American Family Radio, and we just try and find a problem and fix it. And this is one of 10 solutions we're working on. We have a solution for AI, a solution for Hollywood, a solution for Google, you name it, we're working on them. This is one that we've got a lot of momentum, and I think will pass this year. But we're going to go fix those other problems too. We find a problem, we find a solution, and then we help get it implemented.
Yeah, I think money is such an important part of our problems, and a lot of people don't pay attention to it because it's transactional. It's not as in your face maybe as other things, but it really is in your face because you're using it every single day.
Well, I'll tell you, your purchasing power for gold and silver did not decline by 20% over the last couple of years like the US dollar did.
Right.
My groceries, when I pay in gold or silver, my groceries don't cost any more than they did 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 50 years ago. It maintains its purchasing power.
Right. Quick take on crypto.
You know, I think it's very innovative. I think the technology is fantastic. I wrote a chapter on it. The problem with crypto, and you might like it or hate it, I like it. It's limited in supply.
Yeah.
It's got privacy. I like both of those aspects. The technology is way cool.
Yeah.
But it cannot be made legal tender in the state under the Constitution. So it is not an immediate solution to our problems. This is.
Got it.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so my friends, Kevin D. Freeman, Pirate Money, also everywhere. You're on the Blaze. You've got your own shows. Where can people follow you?
EconomicWarRoom.com for our 30-minute TV show on Blaze. You can get it free. We're outside the paywall. Or PirateMoneyRadio.com. Or you can listen to us on Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. on any American Family radio station.
Amazing. Kevin, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
by.
What an honor. Thank
It's been my pleasure. I really learned a lot today, and I appreciate you doing the work you're doing because our money is a problem. problem.
It is a problem. We have a solution.
You do. All right, my friends. Pirate Money with Kevin D. Freeman in the house. You have a great last name, too, for the work you're doing. It's perfect.
Appreciate it.
All right, my friends.
There's a book if you want.
I got a copy? Thank you for that. All right.
It's my previous book.
Ooh, that is a hell of a
Ben
cover.
Person wrote forward on this, Nick Vujicic on this. I think read this one first, but I think you'll like both.
Oh, I will like this one too, no doubt. Here's another one that he just gifted us. According to Plan. Very great book cover. Thank you for coming over. Kevin D. Freeman in the house. Our money needs to be fixed, and they've got a plan for us. So we're excited to talk to him, man. Good stuff there. And I liked his crypto take. I thought he might come out and obliterate crypto, but he didn't.